All right, everybody. So I wanted to do one last goodbye, one last post-mortem look at our dearly beloved Highguard. Okay. The reason I wanted to do this is, for one, because we have a couple of updates, things that just broke in terms of like breaking news in the last few minutes even. But beyond that, also, when we last talked about Highguard, it was right before the PlayStation State of Play on Thursday. We had like 36 minutes before the show started when I started that segment. And so I was kind of rushing and I blew past two of probably the craziest tidbits. When I was looking back at the clip and like thinking about it, and I was looking back at the statement that the dev made, I was like, wait, did I not talk about that? And I looked closer and I was like, oh my God, I think I blasted past it. I looked at the clip again. I was like, dude, I like didn't circle on this at all. Because one of the most insane things is right here. And it was right at the end and the show was about to start. So I just moved on from it, but it's totally insane. Okay. So I want to circle back to that. I want to talk about some of the aftermath because there has been some developments since we talked about that. Not to mention one of the breaking news elements, which is that the thing just continues to implode. So here we are. This, I think, will be the last time we talk about Highguard for a good long while, probably until they fully shut it down. And I'm sure it'll come up again at the end of the year when we're talking about the Game Awards and all of that. But for now, this should tie it up. But there's two specific little tidbits and aspects I wanted to focus on and drill back into. But long story short, the update we have is that the Highguard website is officially like down. It's just been shut off, which is really, really strange. They did say that they're going to continue working on it after laying off pretty much everybody, but we'll see what that actually looks like. In my experience, a studio can't lay off 90% of its employees and expect things to run normally. Just doesn't really work that way. So I don't know what the hell they're expecting to do. They do apparently have a bunch more like characters and content and stuff that they had lined up, but whether we see that or not is quite doubtful. And the main reason it's doubtful is just, I mean, if you look at the current player counts and stuff, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out this doesn't really work. You know, I think that in the aftermath of Highguard, there's so many things that just don't seem to make sense about it. Shout out to Trevor, our editing extraordinaire, edits the clips channel, all of the short form clips and everything. Trevor's a beast. But he messaged me this morning and he was telling me, I just feel like there's something missing for the story of Highguard, because there's certain things that just don't really make sense. How is it that pretty much every industry insider, quote unquote, was hyping it up and was super into it when gamers are totally disconnected from that reality and don't understand what they're talking about? How is it that they shut it down? I think 16 days they fired everybody, 16 days after launch. How is your studio so poorly managed and run that it's so fragile? 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks after it launches, if it's not going well, you fire everybody. How do you not have more in the bank? How do you not have more of a runway? Like what? How does this make any sense? And furthermore, how did they end up in this position where they thought that this was honestly going to end up being the smash hit that was described in that initial statement from one of the devs? Now, I have some thoughts, and the thoughts I want to focus on are twofold, and they're things that we kind of skipped over when we discussed this on Thursday. Like I mentioned in the preamble to the segment, when we talked about this big statement from one of the devs, the state of play was half an hour away, so I was rushing through it. And dude, there's two individual segments in here that I blew past, namely this section right here. And then there's another statement that was made very, very early on in the post, which is right here, which is also patently insane. So I'm going to tell you about it. Okay. Because I think the story of Highguard will continue to be discussed and broken down over the next a few years, honestly, but I think it is a textbook example of a sort of arrogant entitlement from the part of publishers and devs. This happens at big AAA studios like EA, Ubisoft, whatever, where they feel entitled to the players. So even if like we're doing surveys, or even if we put a trailer out and it's mass downvoted, it doesn't really matter. They're going to show up anyways. They're going to play it. They're going to like it. You know, that mentality where, well, we like it, so you're going to like it, you know, and then they act shocked and they blame you when you don't think it's that fun, when it's like, you have this relationship backwards. You're supposed to be making something I want. You're supposed to be appealing to me. The analogy I made on Thursday was, you know, it's like if you go to a restaurant You order, like, you look at the menu and like, this all just doesn't look very good. And the chef comes out and is like, why did you not eat or order the pig snout sandwich served on a car tire? And you're like, because it looked bad, sir. It looked bad. I didn't want to order it. And he's like, well, you're being too judgy. You're being hateful. It's like, okay, cool. But like, your job is to sell me. Yeah, the German French chef. I don't know who that guy is. But like, your job is to make something I want. Like, what do you mean I'm being judgy? What do you mean I'm being dismissive? You have this dynamic backwards, my friend. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. And so I think that entitlement is part of the angle here. Two, I think that, as I've said before, hype makes you stupid, right? This is true for gamers looking at something they're excited for. And it's also true when it comes to the companies making something, where if the developers start to get hyped up on what they're making, they get those like Tom and Jerry $ eyeballs, and they lose sight of what reality is. They just totally become disconnected from it. And they start doing and saying crazy things. Like, they lose their minds, okay? And I think that also happened here, okay? There's a couple of pieces here where people will start to assert things they want to be true as if they are true until everybody collectively believes it. And they sit in their bubble, and then they're shocked when the feedback is negative once it breaks into the mainstream, once people actually end up looking at it and are like, I don't see what you're saying here. You know, I'm not seeing it. So we're going to look at each of these because there's a couple of key factors here. One of the best statements on this topic was actually made by the CEO and creative director for No Rest for the Wicked. He directly responded to this long post from Josh, the developer, who has since deleted the post and deleted his entire account, which, I'm going to be honest, I know there's easy jokes and like memes to throw in there. I do think, unironically, it was the best option to get off social media for that guy. He described how he was an autistic adult working in the industry, clearly high functioning and everything, but that post did him no favors. It did the devs no favors. It was basically a deflection of all responsibility. It was a bad post, which is why people like myself and many other people talked about that post, because it was very out of touch and disconnected. And it was basically blaming everybody but the studio for making something nobody wanted to play. And so I think it was a good choice for him to disconnect from social media. I think there's a reason why everybody else at the studio had fully disconnected and was not trying to make any statements. They probably are thinking everything he's saying, but there's a reason they weren't posting it publicly, because it just doesn't get you anywhere. And so I think he made the right choice for his own mental health by disconnecting. So I will not shame him for that. That being said, you are an adult and you did make a public statement, so we can talk about your public statement posted to a public forum. But I think it's good if he just kind of disconnects and moves forward from there. But what did Thomas Mahler say, the CEO, creative director for No Rest for the Wicked, CEO of Moon Game Studios? He described this in response to the long post, which I thought was interesting. I think it's time we talk about something uncomfortable. Over the past decade, social media has fundamentally changed how people experience reality. Social media algorithms reward agreement, and then communities form around those shared views. Dissent gets filtered out. Over time, you stop hearing actual criticism, not because you're right, but because you've essentially curated it away. That certainly feels good in the short term. You feel validated all the time. You start to believe that you're special because you surround yourself with people that tell you that you are, and you're telling them that they are. And you're all one happy effing family full of very special people. Does this start to sound like the positivity bubble, the echo chamber that we saw when this guy is describing how everyone I knew that had any connection to the team or project Highguard had the same sentiments? This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this game all day. Things that no gamer thought when they saw the game. It sounds to me like stuff that was being said by people within the studio, within that bubble, within that echo chamber, right? It's exactly what's being described. But that creates a dangerous illusion that your bubble represents the actual world out there. And then you get the reality check. You release or you ship a product, you release a film, you launch a game, and suddenly you're not being pampered anymore. And it feels shocking, almost offensive, because how could you have been wrong after you've been told you're right so many times over and over again. But what you're experiencing is not malice, it's insulation, which is exactly what happened here. The actual truth is growth requires friction. It requires being told you're wrong. It requires being humbled. Something we've not really seen any semblance of with the Highguard stuff. Even when the reaction to the trailer was negative, overwhelmingly negative, because I think it was demonstrably a bad trailer, was there any sort of humility from the team or from anybody within the industry who's playing defense? Did they come out and say, you know what? You guys are right. We're going to come back and win you over. No, it was, you guys are crazy. It looks awesome. We'll be accepting your apology soon. To be fair, the CEO of Wildlight did do an interview right before launch where he did say, I think the trailer wasn't very good. It didn't communicate what we needed to communicate. He kind of deflected and said it was Jeff's fault because it was a last minute thing. And so even that was sort of a deflection of responsibility. But to be fair, he did say that the trailer wasn't very good, but it took them over a month to come out and say that, which is wild. I also learned that the hard way. Yeah, it's no goddamn fun, but you'll be better for it afterwards. I also learned that the hard way. When I went to art school, I thought I was talented. I'd been told so many times. I've been told my whole life because I was drawing and painting pretty pictures that looked nice. When I got there and realized that pretty isn't the same as meaningful, I got my work torn apart, work that I had labored over. My tutors ripped into me because I didn't respect them enough to actually think through my work, and they were right. That was painful, but it was the lesson I needed at the time. The same thing happens in game development right now because people form these bubbles. They think they've nailed it, but then players tell them otherwise. What matters is how you react then. Either retreat into defensiveness and keep making the same mistakes, or actually listen and be willing to learn. Life is short, folks. Being humbled might be uncomfortable for a while, but usually you then get to look back at some point and understand that this was the moment you started to learn something new. Which, an example that may surprise you, Marathon. Insert joke about Marathon sucking art theft raiders, whatever. Marathon had a lot of very clear things they were not going to do. They said no proximity chat because you know what was happening in their bubble at the studio? They were like, we don't like toxicity. It hurts my feelings. I do not like it. And so they didn't want to do prox chat. They announced the game. It looks rough. And people also find out that it's not going to have basic things like proximity chat in an extraction shooter. And gamers said, no, you need that. Like, that's kind of a bare minimum thing. And you know what they did? They pulled a 180 and they added it. Now, there were some other things that happened too that kind of kicked them in the teeth. But the point is, they actually pulled a 180. We're like, okay, we feel very strongly we shouldn't have it, but the gamers are overwhelmingly telling us we need it. And they went and added it, which they deserve praise for that. Like, again, part of holding companies to a standard is that you reward them when they do something good and you criticize them when they do something bad. And that was a case of good Bungie. You did the right thing. You turned a 180 once you got feedback from the players. Whether the game ends up working remains to be seen. We'll have the playtest later this month, but that was a good choice from them. They got the feedback and it was a reality check because their bubble was overwhelmingly saying, no, it's toxic. No, there's mean people on voice chat. We don't like it. We don't want to do that. And then once they heard from the public that they actually did like it, they pulled a 180 and changed their mind, which I think, again, was the right choice. But with that having been said, what was posted by this dev revealed a couple of very interesting things. And in the aftermath of Highguard, there's been a couple of interesting reveals. For example, before we get to Josh's statements, Rebs Gaming, who does a lot of really good coverage of the games industry, was privy to some information. Lead character concept artist Christina Ferez revealed that she was the only character concept artist and also had to lead the MTX team at the same time. She only had 2 to 3 weeks to design a character and lead the microtransaction team within those weeks, which was very challenging for her. You can see that she describes this: 1 week for exploration and ref gathering, 2nd week for concept refinement, and another extra in case there's props and attitude sheets to do. Within these weeks, I had to take time from these characters to lead the microtransaction team. So in reality, time was spread really thin. Apparently, a lot of the people working on Highguard were wearing many different hats. It was a pretty lean, mean team where they were all pumping through and doing all of this. And you might think, why were they working so crazy on all of this? Well, this goes to the first thing that we kind of blew over in that initial statement that has since been cleared off the internet. And I just want to circle back to this again, because this I thought was really, really interesting, and I just blew past it the first time we talked about it. Look at this. Look at this. And since we were independent, this is him describing all of this. The internal pre-reveal feedback, even from unbiased sources, X to doubt on that, was quite positive. And where it was negative, it was constructive and often actionable. People who played the game, including us, had a blast. And since we were independent, self-published studio built with royalties in mind, many of us were hoping this could finally be the thing that broke the millennial financial curse. I didn't even really process this when we first read it, but I'm pretty sure what this is describing is that they had built this studio out, and the original core team working on the game was going to be assigned royalties, meaning that for every year, if they did $1 billion in revenue or profit, the employees on the original dev team would get royalties of like 0.1%, 0.2% of revenue, whatever it is. Or maybe it goes into a general pool, 5% of profit goes into a pool, and then that gets divvied up among the team, whatever. What he's describing, this could finally be the thing that broke the millennial financial curse. They were hoping that this would make them rich, that this would break the millennial financial curse, that they'd be able to finally buy a house if they got this. What's the millennial financial curse? It's the same description as, like, you know, the thing where millennials can't buy a house. Millennials have no investments. They have no retirement accounts and things like that. Remember what I said about how when people get like the idea of potentially making money, they get the, you know, Tom and Jerry dollar sign eyes, and they lose sight of reality because they really are hoping for something to be true, even if it's not. You know? This is how it happens. I mean, it's exactly that. He's just describing, yeah, they built this studio with royalties, and that's what they're hoping. It's because they went to art school. I mean, it is true. If you want to make money, there are things you can study and careers you can go into and make money. Art is just not one of those. Dude, I took electives in like the theater school in college, and bro, there would be these people. Like, I remember there was this one person who was just the most miserable sack of crap you'd ever meet. Like, just seriously, every day there were 15,000 things wrong. Perpetual victim, like, despite the fact that they're driving around in a brand new car their parents bought them, their school is paid for by their parents, like, they have it cushy, okay, way cushier than I did. And they're complaining about not having any money in their checking account. And I was trying to be helpful. I said, you should go apply for a job at like one of the banks. Banks are super cushy jobs. You make really good money per hour, even in starting positions. It's comfy, it's air conditioned. You just sit in a chair, help people with withdrawals and deposits. Like, it's super easy and make good money. I was trying to be helpful. Turns to me, gives me the stinkiest, grossest look. Is like, yeah, I don't want to do that. It was like, okay. Cool, you know, whatever. What are we doing? Like, I was just like, okay, you want money, but then you're also saying I don't want to have to do any work for it. And I also, like, they would also go on and on about like how people with money are evil and everything. And it's like, bro, if you hate something, you shouldn't be surprised when you don't have any of it. Okay. If I hate money, I don't get to complain when I don't have any. If I hate having friends, guess what? I'm not going to have any friends. And to then go and complain about it is stupid. Dare I say dumb? Okay. So, yeah, if you go into artistic fields, I think that that's really admirable because it's a labor of love. It's something you're doing because you don't necessarily, you know, you're not expecting to get rich or anything, which is totally fine. It's hard for me to understand. Some people just genuinely don't want to, like, don't care about their financial position. They're fine, like, just chilling. Honestly, they're probably way happier than I'll ever be. But yeah. Anyway, continuing on. The second and most insane thing, though, that I think is such a tell and mask off moment, accidentally, was this portion right here. Because we got to this section and the state of play was happening, and so I just like immediately blew past it. But I thought this was so insanely revealing. Also, this is at the very end of his post. I just want to shout out some incredibly supportive journalists and creators who genuinely made a night and day difference in enduring the last 2 months. All of these folks deserve far more credit than they get for their empathy, intuition, and integrity. I'm not sorry. Okay, I was about to say I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. The idea of a supportive journalist is insane. That's ridiculous. And to think that there should be such a thing as a supportive journalist betrays a lack of understanding of what the hell a journalist is even supposed to do. That it's hard to put into words, okay? It's literally the same as if like, oh, well, I found a journalist who's really supportive of Putin. I should not expect to get level-headed, reasonable takes from that journalist and reporting from that journalist on anything having to do with Putin. If he's described as supportive, right? Journalism is supposed to be unbiased, level-headed. It's not supposed to have that bias built into it. Same thing if you see that, oh, well, you know, this journalist is really supportive of the Trump administration or the Biden administration, or this journalist is always super supportive of Ubisoft or Tencent or EA or whatever. That's not what journalism is supposed to be. It's just not. You know, if you're a creator, this is one thing to be clear about. If you're a creator and you're known as somebody who's supportive of live service, that's fine. There's some people that are listed here who are known for just being really upbeat and positive. You could show them a donkey turd and be like, this is Overwatch 7. And they're going to be like, looks great. You did great work. You know, they're just positive people, right? I'm not one of those people. Like, if I see something that's really nice and that I like, I'll tell you I like it. If I see a steaming donkey turd, I'm going to be like, this is a steaming donkey turd, okay? But, you know, if you're somebody that likes covering games in just a really upbeat, positive way, that's fine. My problem is with the description of incredibly supportive journalists, which is as oxymoronic as I can possibly imagine. It's actually insane. It's actually insane. It's just ridiculous. It's like saying, oh yes, my atheistic priest. It just doesn't, they don't click, you know, that shouldn't work. But I think that the fact that this was even described as if there are incredibly supportive journalists betrays a twisted mentality that some people in the industry on the publishing side and dev side have. Okay, it betrays a fundamental disconnect between the game's media, portions of them, and like the community that they're supposed to be representing and reporting for. When I go to a journalism outlet, whether it's VGC, Insider Gaming, allegedly IGN or whatever, I'm expecting the level-headed take. There should be no support. There should be not. It should just be, this is what it is. Descriptive. There's a place for opinions. They're called opinion pieces. They're called op-eds. That's why there's a label for it. Op-eds. This is this reporter's opinion, right? But the actual reporting should be totally unbiased. But what's being described here is specifically like, yeah, we should give more credit and care to the supportive journalists for their empathy and intuition. What the hell does this even mean in the context of what we're talking about? Intuition? They were really intuitive in their coverage. Like, what? I don't know. Access media. Well, the thing is with access media, because in case people are not familiar with that term, the idea is that there's some people that will be positive to something because they want to retain access. And so they're not paid with like a check, they're paid with access. So like, you know, somebody's invited to a preview event for like Highguard and they could be really critical, they could be positive, but you know, maybe they feel critically, but they're going to couch their opinion because they want to be invited back again. That is certainly something that I'm sure happens with some people. In my experience, just say what you think. Like, just say what you think. If you go to an event, a preview event, and you really like what you saw, be honest about it. And if you really hated what you saw, be honest about it, and the rest is history, you know. Sometimes there will be repercussions. I went through a period where for like a solid 2 years, Xbox and Bethesda wouldn't respond to emails because I wasn't a fan of Starfield. Not a big fan of Starfield. And so I, you know, all of a sudden we're at capacity. Sorry, we have no more room for Luke to come to this thing. Interesting. You know, yeah, you need to be more supportive. What I heard from a secondary source, so it is hearsay, would not hold up in court, but what I heard from somebody talking to a member of a marketing team was that in order for me to get access to one of those events, I need to support the brand more, which is crazy. But that's the same description, okay? My perspective is content creators, influencers, that's a separate bubble. If you want to be an Xbox fanboy and do that and play cover, that's your right. If you want to play cover for Nintendo or PlayStation, that's your right. We'll respond to your takes. We'll make fun of you, whatever. That's fine, you know. But if you're going to describe yourself as a journalist, you need to be held to a higher standard. And the idea of a supportive journalist, that's just insane. It's just ridiculous. That should not be something that ever happens. Okay. That just doesn't happen. So I feel for the people that, you know, we're passionate about this, but I think that this is a prime example of that echo chamber effect, of that bubble, and how the moment that it broke into the mainstream, it took a nosedive, and all of a sudden there's no agreement. Everybody's like, what are you talking about? Because that's really the tale of Highguard, is that there were people who saw it that were just so thoroughly hyped about it. And then the moment it was revealed to the public, the reception was the opposite. And that should be extremely revealing to studios and publishers that, okay, just because we feel 1,000% that this is awesome, it does not mean that the community will feel the same way. You know, that statement was primarily blaming gamer culture for the ills of Highguard, for the problems they experienced, you know, quote unquote gamer culture. And, you know, maybe to a certain extent, depending on how you define it, sure. Yeah. The point is that the developers were so out of touch with the culture of the gamers they were allegedly trying to appeal to and represent that they were totally stun-locked by the negative reception to their trailer, which they shouldn't have been. Because again, the moment we saw it, we were like, what? What are we talking about? What are we doing? And now there's this like conflicting thing of the studio going belly up. The people who are saying this stuff, they are deleting their accounts and they're going away. Even now, there's still people playing defense for it as the website shuts down and everything. And I think that more generally, there's going to be an attempt to sort of move on from it. I do think that a lot of these people do still blame gamers and think that it was unfairly targeted and people were just being mean and hateful. But already you're starting to see pivots. Even Jeff's statement about it is like sort of a pivot. Did you see this? So he did finally say something about it after being like, I've defended Jeff on this. It is his right to say this looks awesome and I think this is going to be great. It's his right. He can totally say that. We get to judge that statement and decide if we agree. You know, we don't have to just follow the edicts of the Dorito Pope, but, you know, it's his right to hype it up if he wants. I don't think he was paid. I don't think he was an owner or anything. But Jeff did certainly hype it up, and I do think he was a little arrogant, not even a little, a lot arrogant with a lot of it. The you'll owe me an apology in 48 hours, or I'll be accepting apologies from you in 48 hours, stuff like that. And then with this to me, it feels like a pivot. You know, right at the very end, after attaching himself so closely to it, hyping it up so hard, a large part of the Wildlight Entertainment team that worked on Highguard has been laid off just 16 days after release. An unfortunate, brutal, and sad outcome for a game I enjoyed in early playtests. What about at launch? What about in late playtests, Jeff? You know, I'm starting to think there's like a little pivot. You know, I liked it a long time ago. Okay, I liked it back before all of this. Okay, not my fault. And honestly, you know, maybe this is a hot take. I don't think Jeff actually deserves any blame for like the failure of Highguard. I think that would be very, very myopic in terms of the perspective. I think Jeff is responsible probably for increasing the odds of this game's success from 0 to 1%. I think if it were showcased in the middle of the show where the Larian game Divinity was put at, and Divinity went at the end of the show, I think this would have seen peak player counts at like 3,500, maybe 2,000. I think it would have been abysmal. But Jeff pushed it to get 97,000 concurrent players. For people saying that nobody gave it a shot, it's just patently ridiculous. It's just patently false. Because according to the analytics firms talking about it, it's estimated just on Steam, they had over 1 million installs. The current estimate from, I believe it was Gamealytic, they were estimating somewhere around 1.5 million total installs across all platforms, maybe more. Do you have any idea how many studios would kill for their first game ever to come out with 1.5 million players? Like, that's insane. That's crazy. Like, that's because of the eyeballs that Jeff put on it. They weren't all like super optimistic, hyped up eyeballs, but he put those eyeballs on it and people did try it. They did install it. They did try it. It's just the game wasn't good enough. It just wasn't. And until the devs in the industry kind of accepts that, it's just going to keep going like this. You know, I said in the lead up to this whole thing that I was getting strong Evolve vibes, very strong Evolve vibes. And shout out Destin, old school Destin. But if you don't remember, this is a game from I think it was initially 2014. It's a video in 2016, so maybe it was 2015. But this is a game from way back in the day, and it was so hyped up. People were giving it crazy high reviews, but when gamers got their hands on it, they didn't see it anywhere near in the same light.
Find out. It's supposedly just like Left 4 Dead.
Evolve is a deeply rewarding multiplayer experience that packs both brains and brawn. They gave it a 9. No fucking They gave it a 9.
There is
2015.
absolutely no fun factor that comes with running circles around the map looking for one target for that long.
I'm largely just doing the same thing over and over.
Does this ring a bell?
Here, I'm the guy that got to review Evolve for IGN.
Like, how many games have you played in your life where you're like, yeah, I want to run some more?
This was an inside job. Thank you.
15.
Greg Miller hyping it up. Classic.
Thank you.
$15 for one, and I repeat, one fucking monster.
You're giving me a gun that's painted blue, and you want to charge me $2.
$130 worth of downloadable content that isn't even on the Season's Pass.
It's not even good DLC. It's not even good cosmetic skins.
Classic
Look at
Angry
this
Joe
shit,
crash
they didn't
out.
Put effort into it.
It doesn't feel like it's got a ton of content to it.
The content in this game.
Like, seriously, across the board, this is like 1-to-1 to what ended up happening with Highguard. Yeah, you gave me a gun and painted blue. I don't know why. I always remember the blue. Like, he said it so slow. This was funny. But like, seriously, a lot of this is 1-to-1. What happened with Highguard? It's why I've stressed, guys, the industry is cyclical, dude. The same stuff happens every 10 years or so, just in a slightly different angle. Like, Highguard is just this generation's Evolve. It really is. It's hyped up on the reputation and experience of the devs. It has a ton of inside the industry support from journalists and from people within the community. Incredibly supportive journalists. People are being told, no, it's actually breathtaking. IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. And when gamers got their hands on it, they're like, what the hell?
$60 as it is now?
Yeah.
I do.
This scalping of our fucking games. Just a pinch more fucking dollars out of the microtransactions.
Balance issues upon release and the long-awaited patches to fix it.
This game is often horribly unbalanced.
Because of the hype and because of all the talk and it's the makers of Left 4 Dead, we're supposed to forgive that.
DSP put his phone down for 2 seconds. He's like, hold on, I gotta stop grinding champions or supercard. I gotta talk about this. Hold on, where's the blue?
No.
And the very fact that you can't be a monster if you're playing in a party.
Give me a gun and paint it blue.
90% of the people that were playing it are no longer playing it.
Oh, did I
I
skip?
repeat, one fucking monster.
You're giving me a gun that's painted blue, and you want...
You're giving me a gun that's painted blue. It's a classic. It's a classic, frankly. A classic. Shout out Krabiga for the fantastic video circa February 2016. But again, the industry is cyclical, and this is just going to keep happening over and over and over again. The industry never learns. It just changes form. And so while Evolve was a $60 game, this is just going to shift. And now it's free-to-play games is the new angle. But it just goes to show you, pure hype from industry insiders will not carry a game across the industry or across the finish line. It takes a lot more than that. And I think unfortunately for them, it's a lot harder to sell your game now. It's the same thing when we looked back at, circa 2016 again. If you look back, the original sales numbers for something like Mafia 3 were actually quite impressive, like way better than I would have thought. The game was like roundly mocked for being unoptimized and really poorly executed. But Take-Two Interactive announced that it shipped 4.5 million units in its first week alone. And this was a game that received 5 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. This would not happen in 2026. A game that reviews this badly would not sell 4.5 million copies. It just wouldn't. So I think the industry has just changed. And personally, I think it's a much bigger topic, than just this. I think that there's angles of I think they've got to walk back the $70 price hike. I think they got to go back to 60 for 99% of games. I think they got to meet gamers where they're at. Gamers are telling them this is not worth 70. They should believe them. And I think that that's also, at the end of the day, the lesson with all of the Highguard stuff is that if gamers are telling you we don't like this, listen to them. At some point, when gamers tell you through downvoting, through negativity, through discourse, listen to them. If you can avoid stepping on the rake, avoid stepping on the rake. We're not going to sit back and be like, oh yeah, I saw you said eat it. Then we all sit back and snap in agreement that you told a streamer to eat it because they didn't like your trailer. Listen to your customers. If they say this menu item looks like ass, sir, I will not order that. Maybe change the menu item. Maybe do that. But they're toxic, Luke. That's the thing. If you cannot handle the discourse of gamers on Twitter, maybe you should go to another industry where there's more of a hug box. But you got to accept that gamers are raucous. Gamers are a little crazy, sometimes even wild light. And, in those cases, you just gotta wrangle them. But if they tell you passionately that they need prox chat, add freaking prox chat. It's such an easy W. It's the thing I don't understand about so many of these things, where it's the feedback is so overwhelmingly pointed in one direction. It's okay, so just all of these examples, whether it's with character designs and stuff, with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, or a game like Concord, character designs are an easy thing for people to point to and have a problem with. So just don't make those mistakes. Don't make a running trash can with a tiny head as a playable character. What do they do with the Guerrilla Live Service game? They have a running around gigantic pillow of a woman, and they're yeah, so money, please. It's just, I can't help you. If you're going to continue making the same mistakes over and over and over again, I don't feel bad for you, especially when you've had years to course correct, It's crazy. Yeah. Gamer hate trains are impossible to stop. It's honestly horrible, though. I think with many things, if you cannot stop a crazy amount of feedback or discourse or anything, if you know that the train is going to be slamming into you in a second, maybe get off the tracks. If you stay on the tracks, you're no, stop. It's not going to go well. Okay. It's just not. But that's what keeps happening is everybody's I know if I stand here and I'm doing what I'm doing now, the train is going to come and plow me over. No. And then they get run over and they're it's your fault. It's you're the one standing on the train tracks, Listen now, Randy, dude, that's exactly what I was thinking of with that was the Ozempic special from South Park. Yeah. Anyway. So there we go. I think that's the last time we'll talk about Highguard. It's cyclical once again. They're taking a gun and painting it blue. It's the same thing. And, industry hype versus actual gamers being totally disconnected. We're going to see a little course correction, maybe one way or the other with a couple of brands, but we're going to be right back here. There's going to be another case of this in a year or two, because that's just what happens. Maybe it's going to be the Horizon game. Hopefully they get feedback and make that game really good. Who knows? Maybe it'll be Fair Game $sign comes out and kills it. I don't know. But the hope is that these companies listen to the feedback and make course corrections. That's what seems to have happened with Marathon, where they've actually listened to feedback and added things they weren't going to have and pivoted away from things they were not going to do or they were going to do. And that's exactly what you should hope for, is that they listen to the feedback and change. And that's what they're doing. Is it enough to save the game? Time will tell, but I do think they deserve credit for that. But we'll leave it there. Okay, wait, time out. We were going to finish the segment, and then this news just broke like a minute ago. Okay, this like just happened. Sources tell GameFile, Stephen Totio, that Tencent secretly funded the struggling shooter Highguard. Wildlight Entertainment said it was funded fully for years, but had not shared details. Chinese gaming giant Tencent was the undisclosed lead financial backer of Wildlight Entertainment, the studio behind 2026's most tumultuous game launch. Sources familiar with the matter tell GameFile. Neither company has previously discussed the financial relationship, and reps for both did not provide comment by press time. Wildlight's funding has been one of several mysteries swirling around the game and its debut, around the studio and its debut game, free-to-play first-person shooter Highguard. Sources are telling them that Tencent was the money man behind it. Doesn't sound very indie, does it? I mean, we knew that somebody was putting a lot of money up. You don't get to have 100 employees and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a Game Awards spot without that. And to be clear, because there's still miscommunication about this, to be clear, Highguard paid for a spot at the Game Awards. They did not pay extra for the final placement. So they paid the entry ticket price, and then Jeff put them at the front right by the stage, basically, right? And so, but that still means that they put up like hundreds of thousands of dollars, most likely, like $500,000 maybe more. And not many indie studios have that, they just don't. So this makes a lot of sense, but it also makes sense why this ended the way it did. I've told you guys a lot. Tencent don't give no F's. If they think this is a sinking ship, or if they're on a boat, a little rowboat, and it's like one person too heavy, they're picking up two mofos and throwing them off. Okay, they don't care. They're the kings of gaming in terms of revenue for a reason. They are as corporate sharks as you can possibly get. Okay, and so like the moment that it was clear to them, I think that Highguard was not going to work, shut it down. They turned off the water spigot and they were like, nope, no more. They do not mess around. Exactly. So this makes a lot of sense. It's also why Tencent, if they got control of Ubisoft, would clean house. Because like the moment they got the steering wheel, you better believe they're gutting it. Just like when they pull like the guts out of a fish, that's what they would do with Ubisoft instantaneously if they got control. Tencent don't mess around. They don't. So this makes a lot of sense. It's crazy that Tencent was willing to put so much money on something that I think was pretty demonstrably not going to work, but there you go. Yeah, Tencent be doing layoffs for Christmas. I mean, literally. Yeah, literally. So yeah, makes sense. Checks out. Tencent turned it off during the trailer. They're like, what is this? Well, it just goes to show you again, you have to remember, these are employees at a studio that left another studio, and none of them were getting rich at EA, at Respawn. So where did the money to fund 100 people's salaries for, like, even if the game was mostly put together in 2.5 years, that's still millions and millions and millions of dollars. You have to get funding from somewhere. And for them, questions initially were like, did Jeff help find this? I don't think Jeff has that kind of money, frankly. I think Jeff's doing very well, but I don't think he's got that kind of FU money to just throw $50 million at something. You know, I don't think that works, but it's just wild light. So there you go. There you go. Little update, but that makes sense. That makes sense. There you go. Tencent was behind it all, and that explains why they shut it down so quickly, because they don't give no Fs. Banana Man. Banana Man. If you're not aware, Tencent and Jeff have a strategic partnerships for multiple years. If you don't believe me, look at past Game Awards shows and see who's been backing and funding the trailers and shows. Also, PC Gamer, Tencent, Epic Games is part of this as well. I think if you are a big player in the industry, you're going to be attached to Tencent. They intentionally kind of get their grips around you. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe it is that there's some sort of backdoor pay or something. I don't personally expect that. I think it's like, never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by incompetence, right? And in this case, I think don't necessarily explain through through corporate backdoor dealings that which you can adequately explain by bad taste. And in this case, I think it's more likely that Jeff just really thought this was going to pop off and thought this was going to be huge. Because if he was getting paid for it, I think the promotion would not have been as like personally coded as it ended up being. So I think Jeff just honestly really liked it, and he just was sort of out of touch with what most players would think. That's my suspicion, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I that's my guess. He took my thing.